Well, hello and welcome to another Diving Deeper from Longfleet Baptist Church. My name's Ken, I'm the minister here, and today I'm joined by Kim for the first time. Kim is Kim is one of our deacons. She's on our leadership team, so it's really great to have Kim with us. And so we're just going to dive straight in. We're following on from our Harvest service and Harvest Festival at the weekend, and we looked at two passages. Firstly, we looked at Genesis 1:20 to 31, which is part of the Genesis 1 creation story. And then we looked at Exodus 23:10 to 19. And so we're just going to have a chat about some of the questions that we did on our Bible study last night. So thinking of that Genesis 1 passage then, Kim, the creation story, what stands out to you the most in that passage?
There's quite a bit to stand out, to be honest. There's quite a lot of it, and it's the repetition of God said that comes because it's repeated, followed by it was good.
Yeah.
And you get that sense of how good, and it's very good at the end.
Yeah.
So obviously that the goodness of God's creation and the fact that He just speaks it out there, and it is the power of God and the goodness of God, and the way that we see that in creation around us. But also it's the bit when He gets to make mankind in our image. It's always fascinated me what our image is. Because it calls to mind the Trinity, for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, because I used to envision God as an elderly old man as a child when I used to hear this story. So it was always like, no, I don't look anything like an elderly old man. So then over the years I've been thinking about what it means to carry the image of God.
Yes.
And I think it has to be more of the attributes of God. His creativeness, his playfulness, his essence of love, and those type of things. Because I don't really want to be an old man on the clouds.
I agree. I think the image of God is that the attributes of God. We're created to be creative. We're created to be loving. I like you said you're created to be playful. Jesus said, Jesus said, I came that they should have life and have it to the full, and that means we must be enjoying life. I get out on my mountain bike. I love being out in the countryside or out walking the dog. That just enjoying life is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it being very good. Yes, we've wrecked creation. We absolutely have. But when God made it, He made it, and it was very good. He saw it, and it was very good. I love just how easily God is able to create in this passage. It might be controversial. I don't particularly believe this is meant to be a literal scientific account of how the world was created. But one of the things it does is articulate just how easy it was for God to create. God wanted there to be light. He said, let there be light, and there was. God said, let the waters come together and let land form, and it just happened. And if this was written in Babylon during the exile, which scholars think it probably was, then that is sort of criticising these early creation stories where there were chaos monsters and the gods had to fight each other. And you look at the Greco-Roman gods who were murdering each other during creation and things. And no, our God, the one true God, He wanted to create, and He created. There was no fighting, there was no warring. It would just, and it happened.
And it just seems so much more joyful.
Yeah.
It is just, He said it happens, it's good. And there's just this purpose behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so following on from that question, what is the most wondrous thing about God's creation for you? And I don't mean His act of creating, I mean the physical creation, the universe, the earth. What's the most wondrous thing in that creation?
So life itself and people. So when you see a newborn baby, most people are amazed and go, that is kind of amazing. And it's the miraculousness of our human body. It never fails to amaze me that I see so much design in the human body. So I know, I've got friends that think we're all here by chance. okay, but I think they have to have a lot of faith to think that, because I think there's far too much evidence to say we're designed so uniquely to survive, to thrive, to heal. And I know healing doesn't always come, but the body is amazing in the way it's able to heal itself. It's almost like we're being created by a creator who wants us to be able to heal. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like being out in nature as well. I mean, on a day like today when the sun was out, on a beautiful autumn day, and you can't help but be mesmerised. And the robin just popped in to see me this morning. And I stopped for my morning break. I was working from home, and it was like, oh, there's a robin, how lovely. Yeah. And it's just seeing wildlife all around you.
Yeah. We're so blessed to live in Poole, aren't we?
Yeah,
just amazing. Beautiful. I walk the dog every day around the Hulls Bay, beautiful sort of bay with an island in it, and there's birds, hundreds and hundreds of birds. I counted the swans yesterday. I got to 28, and then I kind of lost count because they were moving around.
Yeah.
And so for me, that diversity in creation is just amazing. And the way everything works. On Sunday in the talk, I said, God's created this huge, huge universe with billions and billions of stars and galaxies, and yet right down we've got tiny little cells inside our bodies that work like a factory. They're like machines. Each and every one of them is an individual machine. And so that, for me, just that wonder of just all of it is just amazing.
All of it. Just pick one thing. All of it.
No. And so then in Genesis 1 verse 20, verse 28, sorry. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So what does it mean that we rule over creation? Some Bible translations say have dominion over. What do you think it means that we rule over or have dominion over creation?
Yeah, I mean, I do see it as more of a stewarding, and that's how I have always read that word, because I find the word rule to be a bit associated with kings and that authoritarian rule.
Yeah.
But if you think about the way that God rules us, he doesn't rule us like that.
No,
so
no.
I don't think it's the way it's intended, and I think it is a much more loving rule than the one that I've always read there.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's much more loving. I'll let you explain your thoughts on that one.
So
but
I think it's ruling over or dominioning or having dominion over, but in the pattern of Jesus, because Jesus is God, and Jesus came to show us what God was like. One of the main reasons he came. And when his disciples are arguing about which one's the best of them, which one's the leader, he gathers them all together like naughty children. Matthew 20 says he gathers all his disciples together, and he said to them, you're not to lord it over people the way the Gentile rulers lord it over people. That is not what sort of Christian leadership is. And he says to them, if you want to be first, you have to be last. If you want to be a leader, you've got to be a servant. And he said, and I came to be a slave to all. This is the ruler of the universe, in whom and through whom and for whom the universe was created. And he says, I am the slave to all of creation. And that is what Christian leadership is. It's that servant-hearted nature. And that, I think, is how we approach this dominion over creation. I like your word stewardship. We're managers. We're responsible managers on behalf of God. He's given us this planet, and we're to manage it, lead it, not abuse it as we do. And this Genesis 1, this takes place pre-fall, when the world is perfect and everything's perfect and humans haven't yet messed it all up. Yeah. And so that concept of leadership isn't the concept we see today of kings and queens and prime ministers and lunatics all around the world trying to blow up other humans and things. So
I think it's helpful to read Genesis, and this particular bit of Genesis, to realise that it's God's world.
Yes.
And it's just a reset for us all to go, actually, this is God's creation. Yes, we rule it, but only because he's given us he's imparted his authority to us to do that.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for him. So
no.
Yeah.
And you see some of the stories Jesus tells, where some of the parables where where the landowner goes away and he leaves the land to managers, or there's one where the landowner leaves it to his son, and various things like that, where there is going to be a reckoning one day for the way we have treated creation. Maybe that's a bit worrying. And so there is an onus on Christians to be responsible with creation. And so moving on to Exodus 23, 10 to 19. And this is about the Sabbath rules and regulations. And this passage articulates the importance of both the socio-economic responsibility of God's people and the importance of worship and reverence to God. So in other parts of the Bible where it talks about the Sabbath, it either talks about this is all about God and revering God, and that's what Sabbath's for, or it says this is all about looking after the people and the land and the animals. But here in Exodus we get both of those together. And so can you think of other passages that highlight both of these things, the importance of both the socio-economic responsibility that Christians have, but also the responsibility to worship and revere God?
I mean, the very first scriptures that I thought of that came to mind for me was the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, because they're just constantly balancing that, putting God first and reverencing God with caring for the community. But they go together so well, because if you don't put God first, how can you love your neighbour?
Yeah.
But if you don't love your neighbour, how can you love God?
Yeah.
It's just like they are almost inextricably linked throughout the Bible, but it's hard to pull out individual verses. But Jesus, of course, managed to do it.
Yeah, well, when Jesus was asked, which is the greatest commandment, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength. Oh, and love your neighbour as yourself. And he can't separate those two things. Which is the most important one, Jesus? Well, that actually they're both equally as important. You've got to love God and you've got to love your neighbour as yourself.
Yeah.
And they, like you say, they go hand in hand. If you love God, you're going to love His creation, and you're going to love the humans that bear His image. So I think we do get those two things together quite often throughout the Bible. The 10 Commandments, however you want to split them up, and whether there are 10 or 12 or whatever there are, but half of them are about our attitude towards God, and half of them are about our attitude towards other people. And so there in that sort of vitally important part of our faith, 10 Commandments, you find this dual loving God and loving your neighbour as yourself. And so the difficult question then is, how do we ensure that we do both of those things as a church, as individual Christians? How do we make sure we have that balance of loving God and loving our neighbour?
Yeah, it's a tall order, isn't it? I mean, I think Jesus is our example, as we know, and he used to get up, like at the first watch, or whatever, go off in the dark to go and pray, go and seek God his Father at the very beginning of the day, and then he would be able to serve from that place. And so he'd had stillness and communion with his Father, and then communion with his disciples or whoever else he was seeing that day. And wouldn't it be great if all of us who confess Jesus followed his pattern exactly? I know I don't.
No.
But I do manage it sometimes, and on the days when you do make the time first thing of the day to talk to God, even if it's just really short, it doesn't mean you've got a perfect day, but you are just more rested in it. Because God gives you that rest, even if it's a crazy day. So
that's helpful. My day as father of 5 children.
I don't know how you do it.
They're a bit more grown up now, but it is generally sort of up at sort of quarter past 7, straight into packed lunches, school, hairs being brushed and plaited and all. And I tend to, around 9 o'clock, after it's all settled down, make myself a cup of tea, and then that's where I will sit down and sort of do a bit of a devotional and try and get into that patter, but it can be quite difficult. Kind of, you know, as a pastor, I'm kind of that. You expect me, as your pastor, you expect me to be doing that, but it's difficult when you've got a secular job and you're working in that secular role and you haven't got the time during the day. Where do you fit in that sort of
I make the excuse that I'm more of an evening person anyway, so it tends to get left towards the end of the day, but then you are in danger of literally falling asleep while you're doing it. So it's not ideal.
No. And so, just trying to, I think also keeping each other on our toes, as it were, you know, in church, you know, having the courage to gently, not sort of like, well, are you praying? But gently say, you know, how's your spiritual life going? How are you with God? And I found, as an army chaplain, someone said to me, that's the difference between you and anyone else in a soldier's chain of command. You have the right and the responsibility to say, how's your spiritual life? How are you with God? How's that spiritual element of you know, however that particular person saw that, how is that going? And I think that's, you know, we spoke last week a bit about sort of gently challenging each other.
It takes some trust and humility to build that up there, because you run the risk of people just reading some Bible quickly to say, right, I'm in this particular bit of the Bible now, so I've got something to say to you. And I certainly can relate to that feeling of like having to perform, and you don't want it. You want it to be relational, not performance. But
it's got to be genuine. You want a genuine relationship.
A genuine relationship rather than I've got to tick my little tick.
And different things work for different people. You know, if you find I use quite a liturgical pattern in my devotionals, and it's fairly repetitive. So Monday to Friday, I use a Monday one, I use a Tuesday one, and I do them. And so each week is the same, although with different Bible readings. Whereas I know that would drive my wife absolutely nuts.
I can't imagine her doing it.
No, she wants to do something. So find out, experiment, and play around. What form of kind of devotional works for you? And then from that flows our desire to serve other people, doesn't it? Also, I hope you've enjoyed it, as Kim and I have had this very quick chat about Genesis 1 and Exodus 23, and I do hope that you will find blessing in God's creation, because it really is amazing. And I think, but you know, both of us just think how wondrous this creation is, and to get out and enjoy God's creation. And find those ways of revering and honouring God, but also serving your fellow human being. You know, love God and love your neighbour. So we pray that you would know Jesus in your life, and that you would know this wonder of this awesome Creator God.